TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom ve'erev tov, good evening. Welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin, broadcast from Jerusalem. Saudi Arabia reportedly bars the United States from utilizing the kingdom's airspace to implement Project Freedom, which triggered a pause to the operation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirms President Trump's commitment to guarantee Iran does not attain nuclear weapon capabilities. And U.S. Central Command disabled an Iranian vessel which attempted to break the naval blockade on Iran. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was reportedly responsible for convincing the United States to postpone Operation Project Freedom, which aimed at forcibly opening the Strait of Hormuz. After the launch of the operation, Saudi Arabia evidently informed the United States that they would prevent CENTCOM from utilizing air bases within the kingdom's territory, amid reports that the royal court in Riyadh was extremely concerned over prospects of renewed Iranian attacks against Saudi infrastructure. Consequently, President Trump held a phone conversation with Saudi Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman. However, their conversation did not persuade the de facto ruler of the Arabian Kingdom to alter course, which evidently triggered President Trump's decision to abruptly postpone the operation. Subsequently, Pakistan stepped in an attempt to convince President Trump of yet another window of opportunity to convert the ceasefire into a permanent end to the war, claiming that the decision to halt Operation Project Freedom could be packaged as a measure of goodwill, while pressure on the Ayatollah regime in Iran is intensifying, with its economy in evident freefall.
We tried our best to convince them to join us through direct talks, to get a ceasefire, which was achieved. First there was one, and then it was extended, then a second extension, then a third extension. At least the hundreds of people who were being killed every day, and the number was going into the thousands, stopped. We are endeavoring to convert this ceasefire into a permanent end to this war.
Meanwhile, in Washington, President Donald Trump asserted that the Ayatollah regime is desperate to make a deal.
You're facing an opponent right now in Iran that has refused to submit. You seem optimistic now that you may be closer to a deal. What's different about this moment now than in other moments where a deal has seemed close?
Well, why do you say they refused to submit? You don't know that. You don't know what's going on.
They were firing on U.S. ships a few days ago.
Yeah, I know. A few days ago is a long time ago. You know, in the world of war, a few days ago. No, they want to make a deal badly, and we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. You know, it's very simple. But what's not to submit? So they had a Navy with 159 ships, and now every ship is blown to pieces and lying at the bottom of the water. They had an Air Force, lots of planes, and they don't have any planes. They don't have any anti-aircraft. They don't have any radar left. Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have some. They have probably 18, 19%, but not a lot by comparison to what they had. And their leaders are all dead. So I think we won.
President Trump did note, however, that while the Ayatollah regime has a narrow window of opportunity to make a deal with dire consequences if it failed to come to terms with its dire state of affairs, it remains to be seen whether the negotiators could cross the finish line.
We've had some good talks before, as you know,
right.
And all of a sudden the next day they're like, they forgot what happened.
Meanwhile, in Israel, amid speculation that the leadership in Jerusalem was blindsided by President Trump's decision to so-called paddle back on the decision to force the Strait of Hormuz open, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted that he and President Trump are closely coordinated.
We are maintaining continuous contact with our friends in the U.S. I speak with President Trump on an almost daily basis. My people and his people speak daily, including today. And I will speak again with President Trump later tonight. There is full coordination between us. There are no surprises. We share common goals, and the most important objective is the removal of all enriched material from Iran and the dismantling of Iran's enrichment capabilities. President Trump believes he can achieve this in one way or another. However, we are prepared for any scenario, and this is the directive I have given to the IDF and our security agencies. Israel is stronger than ever. Iran and its proxies are weaker than ever.
It is important to highlight that Israel continues to maintain its highest state of alert to guarantee preparedness if and when President Trump decided to relaunch a kinetic operation aimed at bending the Ayatollah regime to Washington's demands. Meanwhile, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, Emirati ambassador to the world body, Hamid Abu Shahab, voiced outrage over the terror regime in Iran's blatant belligerence against the UAE civilian infrastructure.
The Security Council meets today under deeply troubling circumstances. A member state of the United Nations has once again chosen the path of escalation, launching attacks against its neighbor in clear violation of the UN Charter and international law. On the 4th of May, Iran launched 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 UAVs directly at the United Arab Emirates. These attacks included drone strikes, which resulted in a fire in the Fujairah oil industry zone, critical civilian energy infrastructure. We call on the Security Council to act decisively in response to Iran's violations and the clear threat they pose to international peace and security. This is why this moment matters. The Council should uphold its own decisions and compel Iran's compliance using all tools at its disposal. The Security Council cannot remain a forum for repeating platitudes while violations continue in plain sight.
The Emirati diplomat further insisted that the proposed draft resolution, deliberations on which ensued at the Security Council, must be adopted for the purpose of ensuring the international institution's credibility.
The issue before us today is not only the security of one member state, it is the credibility of this Council, the protection of international commerce, and the principle that states cannot attack civilian infrastructure and global shipping without consequences. The UAE will continue to work with partners for stability, security, and de-escalation. But peace and stability require clarity, and clarity begins with accountability.
It is important to point out that the new draft resolution could essentially provide a necessary mandate under Article 7 of the UN Charter to force the Strait of Hormuz open. Therefore, while incessantly claiming their refusal to join the conflict, European powers are slowly but surely deploying significant naval assets in the direction of the Strait of Hormuz.
Dès que le calme sera revenu, eh bien cette mission puisse se...
As soon as calm is restored, well, this mission can be deployed for the benefit, I tell you, not only of France, not only of Europe, but of the entire world, which is desperately waiting for calm to return so that the colossal damage inflicted on the global economy can be repaired. Meaning the destination for the Charles de Gaulle at present is clearly the Strait of Hormuz? It's towards the direction of the area. You know, the Charles de Gaulle has got reach due to its equipment and the ships that accompany it, which allow it to contribute to defensive missions. This is precisely why we deployed it so quickly at the beginning of the war in Iran, to the Mediterranean, so that it could, thanks to its capabilities, lend credibility to our defensive posture to protect our citizens and our partners who were targeted by Iran.
Ressortissants, protéger nos partenaires qui étaient pris possible par l'Iran.
Meanwhile, in the Strait of Hormuz proper, U.S. Central Command announced that an Iranian-flagged vessel called MT Hasna, which defiantly attempted to breach the American naval blockade on Iran, was attacked and successfully disabled. According to a CENTCOM statement, quote, American forces issued multiple warnings and informed the Iranian-flagged vessel it was in violation of the U.S. blockade. Consequently, after Hasna's crew failed to comply with repeated warnings, U.S. forces disabled the tanker's rudder by firing several rounds from the 20mm cannon gun of a U.S. Navy FA-18 Super Hornet launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln. The blatant attempt to breach the naval blockade by yet another Iranian vessel is evidently rooted and Tehran's perception that it has gained the upper hand over the United States. This irrational perception was evidently stimulated by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who in recent days visited both Moscow and Beijing, where he had received assurances that Russia and China stand by Iran.
Our Chinese friends believe that Iran, after the war, is different from pre-war Iran, that its international standing has risen, and that it has demonstrated its capabilities and strength. Therefore, a new era of cooperation between Iran and other countries lies ahead. We reviewed all current issues, including matters related to the war and how to end it, the negotiations currently underway, issues related to Iran's peaceful nuclear program, issues related to sanctions, all bilateral matters, and the Strait of Hormuz was one of our serious topics of discussion, along with the need in any case to respect the rights of the Islamic Republic of Iran and all the views that exist.
Meanwhile, a bipartisan delegation of U.S. senators visited Beijing for a meeting with Chinese State Councilor Wang Yi, during the course of which the Chinese Communist Party's top diplomat emphasized a keen interest in revitalizing relations with the United States.
This delegation is the first bipartisan group of U.S. senators from the U.S. Congress since President Trump took office, making it highly symbolically significant. Face-to-face communication is the prerequisite for enhancing mutual understanding and the starting point for building trust. We hope that through this visit to China, you will experience the new dynamism of China's development, build new bridges of communication, explore new areas of cooperation, and inject fresh momentum into the healthy, stable, and sustainable development of China-U.S. relations.
I very much appreciate the points you just made, the importance of mutual respect, of peaceful cooperation, of stability. We seek the same outcomes. As you know, the United States Senate is a different branch of government than the executive branch. So we are here as U.S. senators today to express our thoughts about our constituents. We are representing them back in Washington from our respective states.
Senator Daines, who is considered to be a strong supporter of President Trump, continued by voicing his gratitude to Beijing's top diplomat in his role vis-à-vis Iran.
I want to thank you for the meeting that you had yesterday with the Iranian foreign minister. You were working to de-escalate tensions, to bring peace to the Middle East, to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And I want to thank you for your personal effort yesterday to help us bring together a peaceful outcome from the current conflict in Iran. So I want to express my personal gratitude to you for what you did yesterday, that important meeting.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News, which is made possible by the generosity of our viewers. If you would like to help support TV7 Israel, which is exclusively donation-based, you can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Please keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Mevorach v'Shabbat Shalom. Until our next update, God willing, Shalom from Jerusalem.